Well, here I am on my hike up here in the mountains north of Las Vegas.
Less than a month after this video was recorded, Kenny Veach vanished into thin air. In June of 2014, Kenny sat down at his computer and did something that most of us have done countless times before. He left a simple comment on a YouTube video. Now, Kenny wouldn't have known it at the time, but as he typed away, he was launching the start of a mystery that the internet would soon become fixated on for over a decade. In this comment, Kenny claimed that he had found a mysterious cave pretty close to the infamous Area 51, and something about this cave just seemed off. Kenny would dub the name of his discovery the M Cave, and though he claimed that the cave was very significant, the internet wasn't buying it. After he left this comment, other anonymous commenters would go on to taunt Kenny for months, until finally, he set out again to prove them wrong, and this time, he brought along his video camera.
I'm looking for a cave that I found, and I didn't have a sidearm when I was here before, and something about that cave just spooked me. Out of all the caves I've ever gone in, this one just made my body vibrate. The closer I got to it, the crazier my body felt. And I talked to some people on YouTube, and I told them, hey, I'm coming out here, you know, because they kind of called my hand on it.
What was supposed to be an excursion meant to put these commenters in their place would end up doing the complete opposite. By making this video, Kenny Veach only added fuel to the fire, and this would result in him returning to find the cave for a third time. They say that the third time's the charm, but for Kenny, the third expedition would end up being a death sentence. This third trip wouldn't prove anything besides proving to be catastrophic, because the now infamous M Cave would end up swallowing Kenny whole. Or at least that was the leading theory until yet another YouTube comment, this time from a very unexpected source, would go on to blow the case of Kenny's disappearance wide open. Folks, I guarantee this is one of the most bizarre outdoor mysteries that you've ever heard. This is the disappearance of Kenny Veach. Now, I just called this an outdoor mystery, which it obviously is, but at the same time, this is very much an indoor mystery, even an internet mystery, because this entire thing was fueled by YouTube comments. And on that note, as fate would have it, one of the most popular and, quite frankly, plausible explanations for Kenny's disappearance also spawned from a different YouTube comment. That probably doesn't make sense, and so let's get into it. Let's dive into the story of Kenny Veach and also explore some of the potential theories about what led to his disappearance. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, especially if you're a repeat viewer. Please help us get to our goal of 1 million subscribers. We're only halfway, we've got a long ways to go, and okay, let's head to the desert of Nevada. Kenny Veach was born in the year 1967, and he was a native to the Las Vegas area. Little is known about his childhood or his upbringing and his personal life for that matter, but we do know one thing for sure, and that is Kenny loved to hike. And he wasn't really your typical hiker either. Kenny was an explorer in the truest sense of the word, and the wilderness, well, that was his playground. Most hikers, myself included, well, we follow established trails. We do research on our routes before we set out into the wilderness in order to make sure that things are safe and that it's worth going on that particular hike. But Kenny Veach had a totally different style than that. For him, hiking wasn't about following a path laid out by others. It was about the thrill of the unknown, the thrill of exploration, and it was about finding things that nobody had ever seen before. Kenny would set out solo into the vast Nevada desert off any established trail, and he would just follow the topography of the mountains and just kind of see what he could find. It's reported that he would go out on these adventures for days at a time and would often decline to bring navigational tools like a GPS, a compass, or a map with him on these trips. Now, that's just what I read and what I came across in my research, and so I don't know if that's 100% true, but it is certainly undeniable that Kenny lived on the edge, embracing the wild with a fearless passion that most hikers, again, myself included, could never comprehend. And at the same time, hiking wasn't Kenny's only passion. Much like myself, he also enjoyed posting videos on his YouTube channel, which was called Snakebite McGee. In one YouTube comment, Kenny wrote, quote, "I go where no one goes, and I never take anyone with me. I find skulls of all shapes and sizes, and occasionally I find really old animal traps. I hike over mountaintop after mountaintop and sleep on peaks under the stars. Sometimes I have to scale giant cliffs to get myself out of a jam, but I always make it back. I'm beat up and tired, and my pack is almost always heavier than when I left. I had to be rescued only one time by helicopter. I had blown out my left leg at the top of the mountain, and I only had a cup of water left to get me 20 miles back to my truck. It was also over 100 degrees out." So clearly, Kenny really liked to just kind of push his luck and just throw himself into the wild like this. And one day, on a random excursion in the desert near Area 51, mind you, Kenny Veach stumbled upon a cave. Now, finding caves like this was a regular occurrence for him, and it's even reported that he would enter every cave that he found. That was something he liked to do, but there was something about this particular cave that was just different. And as fate would have it, Kenny's discovery of this cave would go on to captivate the internet, and some say it was this very cave that ultimately sealed his fate. But we're gonna get there. So with that said, obviously things are about to get pretty dark, folks. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. And so before we get there, I want to lighten the mood for just a second and tell you about Drink Element. Drink Element is the sponsor of this video. Oh, and I just said sugarcoat. So speaking of sugarcoating things, Element is not sugarcoated like most other electrolyte drink companies you're gonna find out there. In fact, Element has no sugar at all. This is a big deal. All Element has is the electrolytes that you need to stay healthy and hydrated on the trail, and they have a great taste. And speaking of their great taste, Element is not your typical electrolyte company because they get super creative with their flavors. In fact, they actually just launched their chocolate medley, which includes 10 sticks of chocolate raspberry, 10 sticks of chocolate chai, and 10 sticks of chocolate mint. This is gonna allow you to get really creative with your electrolyte drinks. You know, you can add it to some hot chocolate or some coffee. Oh, and also be sure to check out their recipe page for more ideas on how to enjoy Element hot. But even beyond the chocolate medley, Element has so many amazing flavors. I mean, just right here, we got citrus salt and grapefruit salt. These are my two favorite flavors, and they even have Element Sparkling if you prefer some carbonation with your electrolytes. Right now, folks, if you go to drinkelement.com/KyleHatesHiking, that's drinklmnt.com/KyleHatesHiking, and you make a purchase of anything on their website that sounds great, you're gonna get a sample pack of 8 additional flavors thrown in with your order for no extra cost. This is literally the perfect way to sample all of the amazing flavors that Element has. So one more time, drinklmnt.com/KyleHatesHiking, or click the link right at the top of the description. And now let's get back to the story of Kenny Veach. Towards the end of 2014, Kenny Veach left a comment on a YouTube video about Area 51, someone else's video, and this is what he wrote. "That ain't nothing. I am a long distance hiker. One time during one of my hikes out by Nellis Air Force Base, I found a hidden cave. The entrance to the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M. I always enter every cave I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my whole body began to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly, I became very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things that ever happened to me." This one single comment ignited a wildfire of intrigue, with most replies to his comment essentially asking for proof. Comment after comment flooded in, urging him, even daring him, to return to find the cave again and to this time capture it on camera. It also appears that some commenters just straight up didn't believe Kenny. To them, he wasn't this daring adventurer. He was a fraud in the YouTube comments. He was a liar, and they weren't gonna let him forget about it. And thus, in October of 2014, Kenny Veach drove into the Nevada desert. He parked his truck, and then he headed back into the wilderness to go find the now infamous M Cave. Except this time, he carried 2 new items that he hadn't brought before: his video camera and a 9mm handgun. Kenny hiked in for a few miles, and then he stopped at an old abandoned mine shaft. He set up his camera, and then he hit record.
Well, here I am on my hike.
Kenny hiked the entire day through the unforgiving, remote terrain, documenting every step of the way. He filmed himself eating some pine nuts that he stumbled upon, and he filmed himself drinking a post-hike beer once he returned to his vehicle. He filmed all of this stuff, and yet the one thing that Kenny Veach didn't film was the M Cave itself. And the reason for that is because, well, he couldn't find it. Kenny could have kept this to himself. He could have ignored all the YouTube comments and moved on, but for whatever reason, probably just because he was an honest dude, he still compiled all this footage, edited the video, and posted this video of his failure to find the cave on his YouTube channel. And predictably, the comment section was not happy. People flooded to this video to leave messages of disappointment, and many people stepped up their claims that Kenny was making the entire M Cave thing up. The comment section buzzed with frustration, and this chorus of disbelief grew louder and louder. Skeptics sharpened their words, accusing Kenny of outright fabricating the entire story. Prove it, they demanded. Go back and get the damn cave on camera. What had started as challenges in response to his original comment had now turned into a full-blown dare, with voices from across the internet growing more aggressive and more insistent. These commenters just wouldn't be satisfied until Kenny confronted the cave again, this time getting it on video so that the entire world could watch. And yet, despite all of these comments urging him to go back, there was at least one ominous comment that echoed pretty much the exact opposite thing. This comment served as a warning to Kenny, reading, quote, "No, do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, don't go in. You won't get out." To be honest with you, this comment probably would have just faded into obscurity if it wasn't for the events that would soon follow. However, because Kenny Veach would go on to vanish, this since deleted comment has been brought into the spotlight when it comes to the mystery of the M Cave. Now, I'm not going to BS you guys. The truth is that this comment warning him not to go back in the cave was probably just like a random person chiming in, somebody just trying to be funny or spooky. But I do want you to keep this comment in mind while I tell you what happened next, because frankly, it's just extremely disturbing. Again, I think I'm probably reading into this too much, but it's almost as though this particular commenter knew what was going to happen next. After processing the flood of negative comments on his video, it appears that Kenny Veach was more determined than ever to locate the M Cave and to vindicate his perception on the internet. Or at least that's one theory about why, on November 10th, 2014, Kenny went back into the desert near Area 51 and near the alleged location of the M Cave. There is another theory on why he went, but before I get there, we need to just unpack the known details of Kenny Veach's last hike. Before Kenny ventured into the Nevada desert for what would be his third and final attempt to locate the elusive M Cave, he made sure to tell those closest to him that he'd be gone on his expedition for a few days. This proved that Kenny was not just planning like a casual day hike, he was planning a multi-night expedition into the unforgiving desert, a mission to confront this mysterious cave that had haunted his thoughts and caused him so much grief on the internet. And so he sets out, and his planned 3 days, well, they came and went, and Kenny never returned. His girlfriend, alarmed by his prolonged absence, reported him missing, and this is the point when the true gravity of the situation started to set in. The search for Kenny Veach was now on. Las Vegas's Red Rock search and rescue team was immediately dispatched, and they left no stone unturned in their hunt for the missing hiker. They scoured every inch of the treacherous Sheep Mountains, combing through jagged peaks and desolate valleys in search of any trace of Kenny. Their efforts were relentless. Helicopters soared overhead, their pilots scanning the rugged landscape from above, hoping to spot even the smallest clue that might lead them to Kenny. And yet, despite the enormous scope of the search, both on the ground and in the air, the desert revealed almost nothing. They found no footprints, and they found no sign of the fearless adventurer who had basically vanished without a trace. However, the searchers did stumble upon one chilling clue, and that was Kenny's cell phone. It lay abandoned on the ground like a ghostly breadcrumb in the middle of the vast desert. For a brief moment, hope and answers were in the air. But instead of answers, this discovery of the cell phone only deepened the mystery of Kenny's disappearance and the mystery of the M Cave. Ultimately, the phone's location didn't lead them any closer to finding Kenny, and it certainly didn't explain what had happened to him. If anything, it actually raised even darker questions. Questions like, why had he left the phone behind in the first place? Or did something force him to abandon it? Did he do it on purpose? This cell phone, which was once a symbol of Kenny's connection to the outside world, now became a haunting reminder that he had vanished into the unknown. Kenny's cell phone was found next to an abandoned mine shaft on the route to this M Cave. I read one comment that we're going to talk about in a bit that actually stated the phone was found next to the very same mine shaft that he had filmed himself by in his previous video. I'm not 100% sure if this is true, but regardless, the discovery of the phone further proves that Kenny was heading back in the direction of the M Cave, but to be honest with you, it doesn't really prove anything else besides that. Red Rock Search and Rescue Commander Dave Cummings was quoted in a local news outlet saying, "We found his cell phone close to a very vertical old mine shaft, and we can't find another trail." And then, with the implication of the mine shaft, kind of reading the room, he said, quote, "It doesn't mean that he's down the mine shaft, but we have tracked him as far as we can. We are having our other crews come in from the search areas." And thus, the search to find Kenny Veach was unsuccessful. And to this day, no other trace of him, let alone his actual body, has been found. And of course, this raises an incredibly obvious question, which is, what the hell could have possibly happened to him? And to try and answer that, this is all going to be speculation, but I don't know. Here are the three main theories about his disappearance. I'm actually going to break each of these theories down for you, and I will interject my opinion a little bit, but ultimately it's up to you to decide which theory you think is most plausible. So let's start off with what is probably the craziest theory. Again, that's my opinion, but some people believe that Kenny actually did find the M Cave this time, and they believe that it was certainly no ordinary cave at all. Instead, people have suggested that the cave was actually a secret entrance to the notorious Area 51, which once again was very close nearby. Can you just imagine this scenario? Kenny stumbles into classified territory, unintentionally crossing a line that no civilian should. He then sees something so classified that the powers that be decide he can never be allowed to tell his story. And then, just like that, he's disappeared, silenced, erased. Now, this is basically a total conspiracy theory, obviously, but given the eerie proximity of his last known location to Area 51, it's hard not to see this as at least a little bit suspicious, right? But I don't know. I mean, as fantastical as that sounds, I'm gonna admit that these next two theories seem more grounded in reality. But then again, I have to mention that I came across a few YouTube videos of hikers who actually went out and claimed to have found this elusive M cave. And in at least one of these videos, there was actually a discarded metal sign warning about Area 51, and the sign was like located inside the cave. And obviously this is not like hard evidence of this wild theory, but again, you got to admit, it just makes you wonder a little bit. But with that said, let's move on to the second theory about Kenny Veach's disappearance, which is the possibility that he simply suffered a fatal accident in the treacherous Nevada backcountry. Now, I've never hiked in Nevada before, but from what I understand, this wilderness is unforgiving. It's vast, it's isolated, and while it is true that search teams scoured the area looking for Kenny, it's still possible, even probable, I would say, that Kenny's body remains out there somewhere, hidden in the rugged landscape, waiting to be discovered. The possibilities for an accident are endless. He could have gotten sidetracked and died deep inside another cave that he found along the way. He could have fallen off a cliff down into a ravine that wasn't searched. And there's even the, albeit remote, chance that a predator, a mountain lion perhaps, could have attacked him and other animals could have scavenged his remains, leaving no trace behind. And of course, there's also the very scary possibility linked to the discovery of his cell phone near the mouth of that abandoned mine shaft. Is it possible that he could have fallen into the mine shaft or another one like it? Mines in this area run deep, and if he plunged into one, his body may be buried so far below that it's basically impossible that he's ever going to be recovered. I want to reiterate that Kenny was known to kind of push his limits when it came to his backcountry exploration. I'm not trying to be insulting here, so please don't take this the wrong way, but traveling into the desert like this without a GPS or a personal locator beacon is a little bit reckless, I think. And because of that, I don't think it's inconceivable that Kenny may have pushed his luck a little bit too far, and the desert, as it so often does, claimed another victim. His fate could simply be a tragic accident buried beneath the sand and the stone of the wilderness that Kenny loved so much. And yet, there's another theory, a chilling possibility that brings Kenny Veach's story full circle and right back to the place where it all began, which is the YouTube comments section. After authorities officially called off the search for Kenny, his girlfriend Sharon took to YouTube, opening up Kenny's original MK video, the very same video that had drawn countless harsh comments, and she posted a 1,000 plus word comment that might just hold the key to why Kenny vanished without a trace. Her comment is so long that I'm not going to read the entire thing here, but I am going to dissect it in detail for you, and I'm going to pick out a few long quotes to actually read word for word. If you're curious about reading the entire comment, then you can find it in pretty much all of the articles about this case. After acknowledging how viral Kenny's story had gone, Sharon wrote, quote, "He has not been found, and I feel that he probably will not be found for many, many months, if ever. I want to share what I know and feel about what happened so that you might bring some closure and understanding in your own lives." Kenny absolutely loved hiking in the desert. It was his very, very favorite thing to do. Sharon then went on to recall many of the memories that she had made while exploring with Kenny, writing, quote, "We hiked and camped together all over the Nevada desert, sometimes 9 hours in a day. We found many abandoned mining towns, usually referred to as ghost towns by Nevada hikers. We explored many caves and mine shafts. We were always careful how we explored them, but Kenny was a bit more daring than I was." Then, Sharon dropped an absolute bombshell, writing, quote, "I want you to know that I do not think Kenny had an accident. I believe he committed suicide. He battled depression for many years and would not take medication or see a doctor. He quit his job a little more than a year before he disappeared. He wanted to see if he could sell his inventions and do what he called cowboy interior design for homes. He bought his first home 5 years ago and had an amazing ability of decorating in this style. He was not successful in getting a business going and was running out of money after a year of not working. He no longer wanted to work in a job for someone else, and as his money decreased, he became more and more depressed. This is obviously a tragic explanation, and the details in Sharons' comments didn't stop there. According to her, this wasn't just some vague theory based on Kenny's perceived state of mind at the time. The couple had actually apparently had open conversations about Kenny potentially taking his own life. And even worse is the fact that Kenny wouldn't have been the first person in his family to do so. Sharons' comment continued, writing, quote, "In early October, with seeing his depression increase, I said to him, 'You aren't going to pull a Robin Williams on me, are you?' And for those of you that don't know, Robin Williams was an actor and comedian who ended his own life in 2014, just a few months before Kenny discovered the M Cave." Continuing with Sharons' comment and her bringing up this thing about him potentially ending his life, she wrote, quote, "This is when he opened up more about his depression and his thoughts much of his life about suicide. His father committed suicide when Kenny was in his early 20s. When I asked him the question, he answered me with, 'If I decide to do it, you will be okay because you are good at the law of allowing.' He asked me what I would think of him if he did it. He also said that if he decided to do it, no one will ever find me." Let's just sit in that for a second. No one will ever find me. That's what he told her. Now, if Sharons' theory is correct, and we certainly have no reason to doubt her, then, I mean, that's exactly what would have ended up happening. No one would find him, given that no sign of Kenny other than his cell phone has ever been found. Oh, and speaking of the cell phone, Sharon actually addressed the discovery of his phone in her comment, writing, quote, "They did find his cell phone by the mine shaft in the video. The mine shaft was only about a 4-hour hike from his car. It is my feeling that he left it behind so that he could not be tracked from the GPS in it. He also did not take his video camera with him on this solo hike. It was left in his home. So he had no intention of filming anything." I tend to think that the last part of that quote, the part about Kenny not bringing his video camera, is very important. And it lends a lot of credibility to the theory that Kenny went out and took his own life. And to be frank, it kind of throws a lot of the story that I've told you so far into question, because until Sharon left this comment, it was always just assumed that Kenny's intention was to return to the M Cave, get it on video, and to prove his detractors on YouTube wrong. But if he didn't bring the camera with him, maybe it's true that he had a different intention with this trip after all. Continuing with Sharons' comment, she wrote, quote, "I share this with you for 2 reasons. First, so that you have more of an understanding who Kenny was, and to bring some peace or understanding to the situation. Secondly, if any of you do decide to go out into our desert to look for him or the M Cave, please be careful and bring enough water and food. I had many wonderful experiences with Kenny and will always remember them and have a place of love in my heart for him and the wonderful things we did together. I am healing from my loss and look forward to new experiences with desert hiking, camping, and taking beautiful pictures of our desert. Enjoy your adventures of life, and thank you for the kind, loving comments sent my way. Much love, Sharon." Since the story of Kenny Veach has gone so viral in the last number of years, his original M Cave video has gone on to amass more than 3.5 million views. And in a bittersweet twist, I guess you could say, the comment section on that video, which was once full of dares, taunts, and outright hostility, has transformed into a place of tribute. Now, It overflows with heartfelt messages, memorials, and expressions of love for Kenny. I encourage all of you to fill this comment section with those same good vibes. The volunteers at Red Rock Search and Rescue worked tirelessly to try and bring Kenny Veach home, and it's for that reason that I've decided to make them my give back call out for this video. I want to stress the volunteer aspect of this. These are volunteer search and rescue groups, and they're truly the unsung heroes of the backcountry, risking their own lives to save others, all for zero monetary gain. I've made a donation to Red Rock Search and Rescue, and I encourage all of you to join me and do the same, even if it's just a few bucks. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I will have their website linked in the description. And with that said, please keep Kenny Veach, Sharon, and all of their friends and family in your hearts, and just thank you so much for watching my videos. I've got a special message here at the end of the video. If you are in the Denver, Colorado area, on December 7th, I'm going to be doing a live podcast with Backpacker Radio. I'm going to be talking about my experiences through hiking. They're going to be interviewing me about various backpacking related topics, and I will be sharing a brand new trail mystery that has not yet been covered on my channel. It's going to be an awesome live show. It's probably going to sell out. And so one more time, Denver, Colorado, December 7th. I'll have details and tickets in the description.